Hello to everybody from this one individual family. It's Beautiful Anonymous. 1 hour, one phone call, no names, no holds barred.
I'd rather go one-on-one. I think it'll be more fun, and I'll get to know you, and you'll get to know me.
Hi everybody, Chris Gethard here. And I know not everybody's interested in long intros. I'll just put this out here. I do have a show coming up in Southern California on October 10th, really near and dear to me, punchup.live/Chris Gethard for tickets to that one. Sign up for our bonus content at beautifulanonymous.com. And if you want to skip to the phone call and you're not in the mood for a long intro, skip about 17 minutes. I think it was about 17 minutes. You'll get right towards the front of the phone call. Enjoy. Hi, everybody. It's Chris Gethard. Welcome to Beautiful Anonymous. Thanks so much, as always, for listening, for tuning in, for wanting to get in touch with other people, with humanity, for wanting to hear other people explain who they are and not just sit there and live deeply in your own head. Thank you for tuning in. So it is a little bit of rigmarole at the top. I want to thank everybody who has been buying up tickets for my shows in Boston, Jersey, Baltimore, Philly, and Hamden, Connecticut. I'm excited for all those shows. One show that I have not mentioned on Beautiful Anonymous yet, I don't often make it out to California, but Southern California, October 10th, I will be performing, and this one is near and dear to my heart, as you can imagine. It's a comedy show. Me and a whole bunch of great stand-ups, Chloe Hilliard, Carmen Christopher, Jordan Temple, a lot of great people. October 10th, it's at the Anaheim Convention Center, and you might be saying, that's a weird place for a comedy show. Here's the thing. This is part of the Wellness Together's annual Student Mental Wellness Conference. If you've been listening to the show, you know I have spent the past year and a half or so building a nonprofit arts organization under the umbrella of an organization called Wellness Together. My wing is called Laughing Together. You can find info at laughingtogether.org. We teach comedy workshops, mostly in schools. It has been massively gratifying. We have taught about over 3,000 people, I think, in our first 7 months of doing workshops. We've been to 7 different states. It's been hugely inspiring to get out there, to see the work that people are putting in all over the country and the world to try to improve mental health in schools, to try to buy some breathing room for these kids, to try to address things like COVID and violence in schools. And I hate how often that is applicable. Point being, put on this comedy show as part of the convention. People attending the convention can come to the show. You can also just buy a ticket. And I'm never really in Southern California. So if you want to come hang out, say hi, see me perform, and you're like, man, he never makes it out to Southern California, now's the chance. And on top of it, the money you can spend, and it's a cheap ticket, it's like $20. The money goes right towards supporting a nonprofit organization that's helping mental health infrastructure in schools. So you're spending your money in a place where you can feel happy about where it's going. You can come support me October 10th, Anaheim, California. Thanks as always to everybody who signed up at beautifulanonymous.com. Our bonus content, we are really cooking with gas. It's so fun. I really think the extra time you get with each caller every week is laid back and fun. And then on top of it, if you're up at that top tier, you get the secret phone number once a month. You get the follow-up with a past caller. All kinds of good stuff. And there's 911 people signed up so far. Nothing to sneeze at right there. Thanks so much, everybody. What else did I want to talk about today? So much. There's so many things on my mind because I've been thinking a lot about Beautiful Anonymous. And I've been thinking about 2016 and 2020. And one thing I noticed, and I'm trying to track this change. Now, I'm just one guy, but I've often said that if Democratic strategists had listened to the episode called Make Fruit Baskets Great Again that we recorded in 2016, with a woman who called up and said, I'm voting for Donald Trump. And when I said, why? She couldn't really totally explain it. If people had listened to that, if those Democratic strategists had listened to that, I firmly believe they could have rang some alarm bells and pivoted based on the Democratic Party's relationship with the white working class. 2020, similarly, every call started to have at least cursory mention throughout the year of the election. This year, it's barely coming up. And oftentimes when it does, it's me asking questions based on what people have told me about the political climate. And I'm trying to figure out what that means. I'm trying to do a little one-person analysis of the trends of this show based on just being the guy who's doing it. I'm not doing this from any academic perspective of just my gut instincts, but I'm sitting here and I'm going, man, we are in an election year where things are topsy-turvy, where there's been so many unexpected things that have happened, and yet it's not coming up as top of mind for people who get on the show anymore. What does that tell me? It tells me that maybe on some level people are very, very tired of talking about Donald Trump. Just in a general, broad stroke level, I think people might just be so tired of political discussions that revolve around the moving goalposts and shifting foundations of Donald Trump's political operation. I think people might just straight up go, I don't care. I don't want to talk about that guy anymore. It also tells me that maybe there's a little fatigue around the Harris-Walz campaign. Who knows? But what I do know is this. There's something else I notice that ties into this tangentially, but that I'm trying to put my finger on. I have noticed recently that we have had, I've been talking about this in recent weeks, we had this sort of burst of youthful energy, younger callers calling the show, high school, college-age people, and some very positive, inspiring feedback from our more middle-aged listener base. You know, in general, our base, as everybody, if you've been listening for a while knows, skews a little bit more towards 30s and 40s and more women than men. That's our demographics. And that's how the show survives. Thank you to all the strong workforce-aged women who have allowed this show to thrive and survive. But I've noticed that a lot of the feedback on younger callers, it used to be a lot of people saying snarky things, rolling their eyes, complaining too much about young people saying the word like as often as they do. But in recent times, the younger callers have gotten through, and the feedback has been along the lines of, oh, wow, this gives me hope for the younger generation. Or, oh, wow, hearing someone that young speak, I didn't expect to identify with so much of what they said. Or, that young person seems like they really have a good head on their shoulders, and I like the way they're speaking to things. You're starting to see more and more of that. And I've also noticed that in our younger callers recently, a lot of what they seem to be talking about is actually some world weariness. They don't have their heads in the clouds. They're going, how am I going to afford a house or an apartment? How am I going to get a job? How am I going to figure it out? Is the American dream of home ownership, white picket fence, 2.5 kids, cars in the driveway, is that dead for me? How are we getting paid? You're starting to hear the young people express that that's what's on their mind. And all of these things tie together. And I have not written anything or prepared anything to say how they tie together. But I'm thinking again of those strategists as we're a couple months out from the election, that if there's anybody out there who works in politics, who listens to this show, who tries to say, maybe Beautiful Anonymous is this pathway to getting a pulse of what people are thinking and feeling out there in America in any given moment, what I might say is that top to bottom, if I were you, I would say you need to explain to the oldest to youngest voters how they're going to have a roof over their head and food on the table And you need to convince them that your priorities are the ones that lead back to that. And I am obviously a very liberal guy who believes that things like climate change directly impact the pocketbook, and that a diverse, healthy society where all viewpoints are included leads to a strong, communicative, united middle class, and that things like diversity, equity, inclusion are not just terms for the moms for liberty types to turn into dog whistles, but instead actually priorities that help all working people keep an eye on each other and feel strong and supported and safe amongst each other. Blah, blah, blah. Point being, please, to the Democratic strategists that I think might touch base with this show, if you're smart and want to hear what people are doing, and this is me putting my finger on this guy. There's some conservative listeners right now going, yeah, he's nervous. Look at that. This guy's nervous. Yeah, I am nervous. But please tell people how your policies lead to them having long-term jobs and stability. It's all anyone wants to hear right now. That's what our callers who are 17-year-olds want to know about, and it's what the 50 and 60-year-olds who are wondering if their pensions still exist want to know about. Anyway, I don't love going political, but every once in a while you have to. And again, this is all driven by the fact that I'm actually very shocked, in some ways pleasantly surprised. Our callers do not seem to have the politics on their mind. They seem to have their families, their kitchen tables on their mind. And 2024, if you go back and listen to the episodes from 16 and 20, these are different. This does not feel like a presidential election year, and I'm trying to figure out why it's not coming up as much as it does. Anyway, I could talk forever, and I won't, because people don't love it when I do. That being said, this week's episode is great, and I like this one. I like this one for the well-roundedness of what it represents in the entire catalog of the show. We've had a really strange thing happen. This doesn't happen often. There's been two real streaks that I can think of where there was this infamous stretch where a caller who a lot of you know by the name of Parade Girl managed to somehow figure out the exact timing of our phone system and get a whole bunch of her friends on. And now there is a family that has come to dominate the beautiful anonymous airwaves a little bit. We all know that not even 2 months ago, I think at this point, we had a guy call. His wife had labor induced. They were waiting for the baby to show up and took an hour to call. And the call talked a lot about impending fatherhood, but it also talked about breaking cycles, about connection to native ancestry. It was a great call. 5 weeks after the baby was born, we put out the Squishy Squid episode where his partner, his wife, got through, and we heard that little baby making cooing noises. It was adorable. And she also talked to us about mental health and navigating parenthood when you've also had to navigate mental health issues, struggles. She and I really bonded on that. Now, and this was not engineered, I can tell you 100% faithfully that Andrea had a caller. The way it works is I put out the phone number, and then I go and set up my whole computer setup, and Andrea texts me when she has a caller on the line, and she was like, I got somebody who I think is going to be pretty good. And then at the very last second, as I was just about to log on, she went, wait, something new happened. I think we have to go with this. The original caller, the dad of the Squishy Squid, his mom has gotten on. So there's so many ways, right? This is now one caller's mom, another caller's mother-in-law. We also technically heard from Squishy Squid, so it's Squishy Squid's grandma. A family has gotten through. And I will say again, I've never met a family that's more open and honest. I talk about this in the call. I've never met a family that sounds more chill, like they would be great people to hang out with, who are also so willing to get into it, who also don't ever come off like they're complaining. Just seems like this entire family is emotionally in touch with who they are and their stories and the steps of the way that have defined them. And I think all three of these calls on their own are pretty great. And I think the one you're going to hear today is pretty great. And when you think of them in the context of we now have met 3 generations of a family. You're about to hear about a 4th. We talk about that. But you're also going to hear, what is it like to be a new grandma? What is it like to be a new grandma and a parent when you think about how you set the table for future generations? How do you think about cycles of abuse? How do you think about breaking those patterns? How do you think about your culpability and responsibility in parenting when there are cycles of abuse generationally in your family? It gets heavy. Obviously, if you're someone who is not really looking right now to hear about some of that heavier stuff, it comes up. Substance abuse, emotional abuse, references to physical abuse, like heavy stuff. But we sit here and we go, man, we've already talked to a son, a daughter-in-law. We've heard the cooing of a grandkid. Now we're going to hear a grandma. And I think, like I said, all of these calls individually are ones I'm very proud of. As a bit of a triptych, I would go ahead and say that while Beautiful Anonymous doesn't get the hype that it used to, and it flies under the radar a little bit more, it's the type of thing I still sit here and I get so excited about this show sometimes. Not because I'm excited to hear sad stories, but because 3 brave individuals who all are members of the same family came in, and each of their calls is a compelling puzzle piece on its own. And then we also get to put those puzzle pieces together now. And as a community, this family has gone on record with some stories that all link together and speak about the emotions of a family that has been asked at times to survive hard situations and some rough choices along the way from some people who have some culpability in that. It's really eye-opening to think about, and I thank all of them. There's also, at one point, I'm going to hear that a caller starts to really speak to what it's like to think of the future generations. And you'll hear me jump in at one point. I don't know if my answers are on target or not. Just trying to be a human in the middle of it. But there's going to be some debate about that, I bet. Justifiably so. Anyway, really great call today. If you haven't listened to the other ones, go back and listen. You don't even need to listen in order, but we have a snapshot of multiple generations of a family checking in, being really honest with us. And I think it's such an eye-opening look at, again, like I was saying before I got into this part, an eye-opening look at families just wanting to make sure things are stable, roof over the head, food on the table, stability in the household. This is what we all strive for. This is what people need. This call is really fascinating. I hope you get a lot out of it.
Thank you for calling Beautiful Anonymous. A beeping noise will indicate when you are on the show with the host.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. How's it going for you?
It's going good. It's going good. My son started kindergarten this week, so all of a sudden I got all this time. I have all this time on my hands. I'm getting all kinds of things done. It's wild.
Wow, that's always nice. The first day is the worst, though, isn't it?
He was cool with it. His preschool was at his school building. So he kind of was like, why does everybody keep asking me if I'm ready? Like, why are you guys all acting like this is a big deal? And then I tell you, his face when he had to get on the bus for the first time, because that was new. When he was like, I'm about to go on a bus without my parents. That was when it was
right.
Like, yeah, dude, it's real.
Right. So is it a full day or is it a half day?
Oh, he's gone from 8 to 4. It's the best.
Oh, wow.
I miss him.
Holy mud.
A little bit.
That's quite a day.
Yeah. He
A
gets
little bit.
He gets on the bus at 8 a.m. and the bus gets back a little bit before 4. It's working
Wow.
full-time
You got
hours.
a lot of time on your hands then.
Oh, it's
No kidding.
I don't know what to do with all this time. And yeah, I miss them. But also, the time is amazing. It's amazing to have all this time back.
Right? You're like, now I've kind of forgotten what I used to do for myself.
Yeah. It's great. Anyway, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah.
Good.
I'm not
Good.
sure if you heard, but I'm a new grandma, and it's the best thing in life.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
I always got the sense from my parents that grandparenting, I get the distinct sense that being a grandparent way better than being a parent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my dad kind of, at one point my dad was like making cooing noises at my son, like rolling around the ground with him, and I was like, you never acted like that with me. He's like, yeah, because all the pressure was on me. I don't have any of the pressure. I don't have to pay the mortgage. I get to just play with the kid.
That's hilarious. I told my son when he was born, I told him, I said, oh my gosh, he's such a pretty baby. I said, you were a pretty baby, but he is so much prettier than you are.
Now,
of course, he laughed and laughed.
I do have to just make sure, because we had a guy call a while ago, and his wife was in labor.
Mm-hmm.
Then his wife called. You're not the grandma of that baby, are you?
Yes, sir. The squishy squid.
That's your. It's hard. It's notoriously. There's people who have been trying to get through on these phone lines for years. How has your family come to dominate our phone lines? How are you doing this?
I don't know, but if you guys sold a lottery ticket, I think we'd win.
Now's the time to buy. I will say, and I don't want to make anyone else sad, Andrea did tell me, like, I've got a caller and I'm going to patch them through. And then very last second was like, actually, something just came up. We got to go with this instead. And how do I know you're actually that grandma? How do I know you're not? No. Meaning you smoked that other guy. How do I know you're being serious? How do I know you're not lying? That you? What if you're not really the Squishy Squid's grandma?
Well, how could I prove it to you? I mean, I could say names, but then you're just going to bleep it out.
Well, we did bleep it out last time. Andrea, do you remember the name that was dropped last time? Andrea remembers. So if you say it again, we'll bleep it again, but we'll know.
So the crazy thing is my son is known to everyone else by, but his middle name is just like his father and his father before him. So to our family, he's known as.
Wow. Okay. Andrea says you nailed it, and you're not a liar who just claimed to be a member of that family to get on the show. I don't really understand how you're all doing this.
I was in the hospital room when she was in labor.
You were. So
yeah.
You were there.
I was one of the ones she told to go take a walk to the park nicely.
Oh, wow. And how's that feel? Do you understand, or do your feelings get hurt?
No, not at all. My feelings didn't get hurt. I know it's a frustrating time. It's actually crazy because it was the same scenario when I was delivering my son. So it was the same thing. It was 36 hours of labor. Granted, this was, he's 34. So this was 34 years ago, but it was pretty much the same scenario. Just sit and wait, kind of going stir crazy. And then all of a sudden it's just, bam, it's time. So I totally got where she was coming from. Yeah.
Now, this never happened before in the show where we've had so many people. I mean, we had one other situation where Parade Girl is sort of an infamous member of the community who kept getting her friends on, but they were all pretty disconnected from each other. It's an actual family.
Right.
I'm wondering, I think about your family a lot, obviously, because I've been speaking with them over the past few weeks. Your son called, talked about his excitement for fatherhood, also talked about who he is and his background and his native identity and working in the native community and how meaningful that is to him and how he's doing his part. I talked to your daughter-in-law last week, and, you know, I wasn't expecting, I got to hear that squishy squid making noises, but then she also started talking about her background and mental health and some of the stuff she's been through. And the reason I bring those things up is because I wonder how you're feeling now. Is this your first grandkid, by the way?
Yes.
Because I sit here and feel like, man, there's so many things I'm going to mess up. There's so many ways that I am not as tough as my parents were, that I haven't been through as much, where my life has been more, you know, I've certainly worked hard, but I've had a lot of advantages because of their hard work, and I'm aware of that, and let alone the fact that, you know, when I had my son and I had been someone who struggled with my own mental illness, but then I sit here and I go, my parents' perspective consistently seems to be, no, you're doing okay, and we had less going for us than you did, and we were more scared than you were, and we think you're going to do great. And I sit here and I go, you guys are crazy because you were champions who didn't have two nickels to rub together. You made it work, and I don't know how you did that. And my parents are going, yeah, no, I think you're doing fine. I think you got all sorts of things going for you that we didn't, and we don't feel concerned. I wonder how you feel speaking with your son and daughter-in-law lately, knowing that they are clearly very kind people and deep thinkers. Mm-hmm. And now you're you're the generation older than them, and I wonder what your perspective is, because we've heard both of their perspectives. So I wonder what your perspective is on some of these things they think so deeply about, especially as they enter parenthood.
Yeah. I mean, it's always been, you know, I've had my issues. I'm sure you're aware that with my son, I had him very young. I was 18 when I got pregnant and 19 when I had him. And I had kind of a crazy life. You know, I was raised in a very abusive family. So I was kind of a wild child. You know, I was 17 when I graduated high school. So, and before that, I was, you know, a pretty good partier. And when I met his dad, you know, it was all about the party and having fun. And, you know, then all of a sudden you find out, oh my God, I'm pregnant. So that just, everything stopped in its tracks and it just ended. You know, it's like, okay, my life is about him now, nothing else. So that was like a whole different perspective for me. And, you know, his father, I'm sure he told you, you know, a lot about his life with his dad and, you know, the relationship that they had. It was never good. It was just, we were young and stupid. So we tried to make it work. And then when we realized that it didn't, we of course parted ways. And then, you know, he was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and he couldn't hold a steady job. And, you know, it's just like, okay, well, this isn't going to work. I'm trying to raise a kid here. I mean, I literally crossed the picket line so I could buy diapers and formula. You know, I was busting my ass. And here this guy's, you know, going out day working and then smoking and drinking it away. So that obviously didn't work. And then, you know, a few years by myself and with my mom and dad, they helped tremendously. So they had a really good relationship with, with my son.
It's okay.
And my dad was kind of an alcoholic as well. And he was the one that was very abusive. My mom wasn't. She was just an amazing person. So we had a really good relationship with them growing up. And then my son as well. So that kind of led me to where I knew what kind of parent I wanted to be and what kind of parent I didn't want to be. So, you know, dealing with growing up with, you know, physical and mental abuse, it kind of led me into the next relationship, which was the same. But the person that I was with was an old high school sweetheart. We had gotten back together, and he was totally different when we were together. So we got back together, and then it was all of a sudden totally different. But I knew that he could, like, take care of my son and myself as a family, and he had a son. So we kind of had this blended family, and it was okay. It was a little It was a little verbally abusive, and it just progressed and progressed and progressed. And so my son, his son, kind of grew up in that environment. So that wasn't healthy for anybody. And then, with my son, the pregnancy was really, really crazy. Like I said, I was in labor for 36 hours, and it was a C-section delivery. And, I was young. I had no idea what I was doing. And my entire thought the entire time was like, I'm never doing that shit again. That was miserable. I was miserable the entire time I was pregnant. So, years later, I'm with this man. And it's my son's stepfather, and he has a son, and we end up getting pregnant again. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to have an abortion. So we ended up, there's an 8-year difference between both of my sons. So we had, another child. And here the entire time I'm thinking, okay, I've got to get out of this relationship. It's not healthy for my kid. It's not healthy for his kid. It's not healthy for me. So then we end up having another baby. And then we decided to go ahead, and he asked me like 4 times before, do you want to get married? No, I don't want to get married, because the whole time I'm thinking, no, I got to get the hell away from you. But then he decided to ask me one year on my birthday in front of my parents. And they just loved him because, he put up this whole facade that he was this great guy. And of course, me being embarrassed and, feeling terrible about letting something like this happen to me, I went ahead and said yes. And we got married, and we were married for, gosh, I think it was 15 or 16 years. And then, my son had moved away to college. The ones that just had a baby, he had moved away to college, and his current wife, they moved together. And then my other son, I kind of stayed around because I thought he had a really good relationship with his dad. And then it came out later that he didn't. So eventually we left. But throughout that whole time, all my kids had to deal with the abuse, not only for me, it was physical and verbal for me, but it was, mentally abusive for them. So I know that brought a lot of different views for, all my kids to see. So I always felt bad about staying as long as I did. And then after leaving, getting counseling and, multiple things, I realized what was right and what was wrong. So eventually it got better. And, I think we all kind of healed just being away from that situation. Granted, I think, both of my kids, and I know my ex-husband's son, they have, my son with him and his son have, some disorders like, I wouldn't say I don't know if it's depression or if they have bipolar, or because they've never been diagnosed. And if they have, they haven't told me. So I know there's some mental health issues there, probably hereditary and then part, experience, I would say. I don't know. I'm not a counselor. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist. So I think that played a big role in my son and his wife saying that they were never going to have children. I never thought I'd be a grandmother. And then my youngest son, he was the same way. Didn't want to have children, didn't ever think about it. My youngest son didn't want to pass. He thought he would pass that kind of mentality or mental problems over to a child. So he didn't want to have kids. So I was under the impression that I was never going to be a grandmother. And I just kind of always mentally thought, holy shit, I must have just been the most terrible mother in the world. None of my kids want to have kids. One of my children lives 6 hours away from me, so I can't even see him. So you just play that whole mental game with you. And it kind of turned into a joke, but in all reality, it was like, yeah, I kind of fucked these kids up, and I live with that guilt. So there's all of that mental stuff. But, I'm remarried. I found a really good guy. He was actually a high school friend of my brother's, and we've always been friends. And after my divorce, we kind of, became friends again. And it just we ended up dating, and we ended up getting married, and my kids love him. He's a good guy. So things are a lot better for us. And we had planned on just retiring and jetting off to like Arizona, because we live in the Northwest. So it's, it's got seasons, and a lot of people like that, but I don't like the cold. So we were like, okay, well, we've got nothing to stay here for, and we don't have grandkids, so we can just go travel and do whatever the hell we want. And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, we're going to be grandparents. And the entire time they were constantly saying, I don't want to be a parent. I don't want to have kids. I don't want to bring them into this world. And saying all these reasons why they didn't want to have kids. And the whole time I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these are all the reasons why you guys would make such great parents. But the entire time it was just, they didn't want to have kids, whatever their full reason was. So when they decided that they, were going to try, they kind of kept it a secret for everybody. And when they finally told me, I was just like elated. It was the best thing ever. And then now that he's here, it's like, holy cow, this little dude is just amazing. And then it sucks because, again, we're 6 hours away from him. So we've got to drive to go see him. Obviously, they're not going to drive to see us. So that plays, again, another mental issue with me in my head, thinking, what am I going to do? I'm not ready to retire. I have a really good paying job here. I can't just drop everything and move. They can't just drop everything and move. So it's like, what do you do? So that's kind of where my whole mentality is now, and where it kind of all stems from throughout, his life and to where we are now.
I have to tell you, I've never spoken with a family where every member of the family is this comfortable speaking to the positives, the negatives, the pain, the flaws, the mistakes, and where it doesn't seem like anyone's oversharing or dumping it out, where it's just, let's speak to the reality. Every member of your family, and it gives me high hopes. It gives me high hopes for that little one, because I've now talked with 3 of the people who will help raise this kid, and all of them seem to have made a commitment to like, no, we're going to recognize the reality. And it sounds like, you laid out a lot of tumultuous circumstances that your son grew up in or was witness to, things that you wouldn't wish on any kid, situations where things, were really grim, where there was abuse happening. You sit here, but I do get the sense that you feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things you said towards the end there that was where I kind of found myself nodding along was you were going, and I think part of that is why they might actually be good at this. They might go out there and really do great at this. And do you have that hope? Let's pause there. I have that hope, and I've talked to them. I think they will be great parents. But hearing Mom's perspective is going to be so eye-opening, and man, there's so much to this call. Anyway, we'll be right back. If you're listening to this show, I know that you are someone who's curious about the world. Well, guess what? There's a podcast now for those who like to wonder at the world. You can join the Constant Wonder podcast for explorations of science, art, history, and more. They're on a quest to find awe and wonder in all nature, human or wild, vast or small. Wonder is defined as a feeling of surprise mingled with admiration caused by something beautiful, unexpected, unfamiliar, or inexplicable. And the emerging science around awe and wonder shows that the ability to feel awe is a skill to be developed, like anything else, through practice. The more you look for it, the more you'll have it. The Constant Wonder podcast is here to help you develop a regular practice of wonder. Experiencing awe reduces stress and anxiety levels. It's been shown to impact overall well-being. Those who cultivate awe and wonder have greater life satisfaction and experience greater creativity. Each episode of Constant Wonder provides an opportunity to keep learning, keep feeling, reawaken the curiosity you had as a child. Tune in to our phenomenal world. Turn a mundane day into a wondrous one. Take a peaceful respite from hectic routines. Experience the thrill of a transformative encounter with the good, the true, and the beautiful. Enjoy episodes like Harnessing the Power of the Sun to Cool the Planet, Sprouting a Seed that Survived the Roman Siege, Family Embraces Dad 2.0 after traumatic brain injury, How to Reforest the Desert, Human Echolocation, Dreams, and the Deep Mysteries of the Unconscious Mind. leave feeling rejuvenated, with eyes wide open to the wonder all around us, and with a deeper conviction that human beings, including you, can accomplish the extraordinary. Listen to Constant Wonder wherever you get your podcasts. I wonder if you've ever thought about this, that sleeping in the summer and sleeping in fall are different experiences, right? No, you just throw your bedding on your bed. But what about a fall refresh? I think it's time for one with Boll and Branch. Okay? My mind has been changed. Boll and Branch thinks about sleeping in a way that I never have. And when you do it the Boll and Branch way, things get better. You can go ahead and turn your bed into a cozy sanctuary for crisp fall nights. Boll and Branch makes the softest bedding with 100% organic cotton, bringing a level of comfort you never thought possible. Start with Boll and Branch's best-selling signature sheets, the perfect foundation for the coziest fall bed. These sheets feel buttery, breathable, and get softer with every wash. You can easily add Boll and Branch's bed blankets, duvets, and quilts without making your bed feel heavy or hot. I love Boll and Branch. Like I said, the way that they think about sleeping, to me, I just go, oh, I'm a bad sleeper. I'm an anxious guy. I get very affected by the weather. I get very affected by hot, cold, all these things. And the way Boll and Branch calculates a lot of their products to make sure those are non-issues, I think it's really cool. I think it's very thoughtful. I think changing your sheets to accommodate the seasons, thoughtful, smart play, and Boll and Branch is out here making some of the best products on the market for just that. Boll and Branch sheets are loved by millions of sleepers. Boll and Branch offers free design consultations so you can build your dreamiest bed with a dedicated stylist. Best of all, Boll and Branch gives you a 30-night worry-free guarantee with free shipping and returns on all U.S. orders of $100 or more. Start getting your best sleep this fall with Boll and Branch. Enjoy 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com/beautiful. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLANDBRANCH.com/beautiful. You'll get 15% off and free shipping. Exclusions apply. See site for details. Thanks again to our advertisers. Now, let's get back to the phone call. They might go out there and really do great at this. And do you have that hope?
Oh yeah. They're amazing. Just seeing, my son go through the process of her being pregnant and being so scared and so nervous and so worried about, what kind of father he was going to be, and hoping that it was going to be a girl because he was afraid of the relationship he might have if it's a boy, and he didn't want to fuck it up, and then to see him hold him and, coo with him and feed him and change his diaper and just be a big part of it. And then, she's always been an animal lover, and she's always showed just such quality and care with her animals. I knew she'd make a good mom. And, when we found out she was going to be a mom, she thought, I'm going to love him. I don't know what it's going to be like, but just seeing the look in both of their faces, they're going to do such an amazing job. They have, they're really intelligent. They have good heads on their shoulders. They've been through some really shitty life experiences, and I think they want to provide something so much more for this boy. And I think they're going to excel. I think they're going to do really, really well. I have high hopes for him, for sure.
Yeah. And now when I spoke to your son, and I don't want to just speak about the past calls, but it is so fascinating to get your reactions to them this quickly. Your son did express that he felt some responsibility or pressure even to maybe break some of the cycles that you're now calling up and speaking to, that things he went through, things you went through that he witnessed. That's got to be tough. That's got to be tough to be his mom and realize that his, and it sounds like probably a correct instinct, but for him to go, I have to break the cycles. I have to change the examples that were set for me. It's got to be in some way, you've got to be so proud of him and so inspired to see that that's his instinct. And in other ways, it's got to be heartbreaking because you were there too and you know what he's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And to think that I did that to him and I did that to my other son and my stepson, to think that, I thought that it was okay to stay there for money or security or because, one child had a relationship with them or whatever. It was selfish on my part. If you could go back and look and talk to yourself, granted, you do things differently, but when you're in that moment, you don't think about that. You think about the now and, you think about the whole life that you led with, being insecure because you grew up in a home that was abusive and there was alcohol and, whatever the situation was. You think it's okay, even though it's not okay. But then you subject your children to that. There's just so much guilt that you live with for that. And I know that neither one of them, because my daughter-in-law, she had a pretty fucked up life too. Her parents definitely weren't saints, and just they weren't parent figures for them. I mean, she was at my house from the time she was like 17 up.
Oh, right, because they started dating when they were kids, right?
Yeah,
right,
they were just babies.
Right. I have to jump in and let you know, like, I was not trying to lead you down a path of feeling any need to apologize in any way. I'm very fascinated by the perspective, and I think speaking honestly to this is very important in some ways. But I do also want to say, you're sitting here telling me, yeah, you grew up in a household with abuse. You wound up with a guy when you were very young. He was an alcoholic. He was a drug addict. When you sit here and phrase it and say, like, I can't believe I did that to them or that I would do, it's like, no, you were a victim too. And when you say, like, people who don't leave, but there's money or security, those are real things. Those are real things. Mm-hmm. And I do just also want to put out there, like, of course, my kid's 5 years old and I already sit around and think about things I would have done differently. And of course, we all do that. But you were a victim too. And it sounds like you were a victim from when you were a kid, and that was the cycle you were born into. And it was a cycle that you got caught up in again. And I just want to say, obviously I was not there, but I feel like, just based on what you've already told me, I sit here, I go, that sounds harsh on yourself. Like needing a roof over your head and not being sure if there's another roof over your head for you and your children if you leave. That's real. That's a real thing, knowing that you might, sitting here and going, the financial security comes through this situation. I can't leave. And I have to somehow rationalize why I'm staying or convince myself it's not that bad. But you sit there and you go, well, it's real. How do you make a car payment? How do you pay for groceries? How do you pay for rent? Mm-hmm. If someone else is a major part of that puzzle and they have control over you, that's part of the abuse. So I just want to sit here and jump in and say, I don't know all the specifics. I wasn't there, but I'm not the smartest guy, but I will say I do know enough to know that it sounds like you were being a little hard on yourself there, that there's certainly room to look back and go, well, yeah, I can look back at some specific incidents where I wanted to walk out the door and I really wish I fucking did, pardon my French. And that's fair. But to phrase it as I did that to them, it sounds to me like my guess is that would break your kids' hearts to hear you say it like that. Because my guess is that probably more than you are realizing, my guess, if I had to put money on it, not having been there, is that they've got to be aware that you were thrown into it too, Yeah. Even from the start, one of the first things you told me is like, this guy is drinking and doing drugs and you said crossing a picket line? Like, I wasn't sure what you meant by that, but so what, like there were striking workers and you had to walk past them and go, I got to feed my kids. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. Was it that type of situation?
Yeah. Yeah. I tried to get like on state assistance, and immediately it was like, I felt like I was on parole or something, like I had did something wrong. They want to know, so much personal information about you and where you're going and what you're doing. And I was like, I'd rather go out and work and earn my money than get state assistance. So I was trying to find a job wherever I could, and dealing with whatever shifts I could. And the only thing that I could really find that was willing to hire me at the time was a local Fred Meyer here in Portland where I lived. They were on strike. And I knew that they called me and said, we'll hire you. I had previously applied and they're like, we need workers. So I crossed through that picket line. They were picketing. There. And I went to work. Yeah, I needed that job. So I would do whatever I could in order to, make sure that he had food on the table and diapers and, where his dad's just over here, like I said, day working, just drinking the shit away every night. It's just ridiculous and then finally after so long, you're like, yeah.
That's something that's done to you. And just to be clear, and I will also say too, just last week I was on like a pro-union rant in the intro of the show. I'm a union guy, but I can hear in your voice that you're going, I crossed the picket line, and you're not saying that with a smile on your face. I can hear you saying that with like, I had to feed my kids and no one was helping me. So I did this. Like, point being, and I don't know, you don't need a pep talk from me, but just hearing the way you phrase that, you got down on yourself there, and I sit here and I go, your son talked to me about wanting to break some of the cycles of the generations of your family. And hearing you say you're the one who went, no, we got to grow up. Can't sit here drinking and drugging. Got to find jobs. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do whatever it takes. There's going to be people, I'm going to cross a picket line, and I know that means some of the people who are in this community are going to hate me for it, but I got to put food on the table. I'm going to do what it takes. My guess is that when your son hears this, there's going to be a moment where he goes, yeah, like everyone could have done things better and you could have done too, but you were the one who represented some hope and some stability and some sanity, it sounds like. So please don't underestimate that or let guilt drown that out. Because that's part of the cycle too. Yeah. That's part of the cycle too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a parent though, and I think, obviously you've already said, your son's only 5 and you still already like have some regret or I could have done this differently. And I think as he continues to get older and things change for him and the things that he does change and your attitude towards some of the things he does change, you're gonna live with, a little bit of guilt and regret in different aspects of your life in different times. And it kind of just as a parent, and especially as a mom, it just bites you in the ass every time you think about it. You're just like, oh my God, if you could just go back, but you can't. So you have to deal with it the best that you can. And I think as a parent, if you're a good parent, you're going to recognize that and, you're going to forgive yourself. Yes, but it's always going to be there. It's like anything else. You could, be the cruelest person in the world to somebody one day and then, apologize the next day. But that whatever you said or did, it's never going to go away. You may forgive them or something, but you're never going to forget it. So you're always going to feel it.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah.
This is real. We're getting into some real stuff. Me and you are getting into some real stuff right now. Congrats on being a grandma. Let's get real.
That's right.
But again, points and counterpoints. I also sit here and I talk to your son, and you'll have to pardon me because I don't have like instant recall of every specific, but I know his job right now involves helping Native communities that he cares about, and that he feels a connection to his own Native ancestry. I sit there and I go, that is cool. And I wonder if you look at what he does and go, well, everything he went through turned him into, when I talked to him, and again, I only talked to him for an hour and change, I sit there, I go, this guy seems kind and cool, and like he's doing some stuff to try to make the world a better place on a grassroots level. And I walked away really respecting your son, and I wonder if you see him in that light. And I'm sure you also raised him when he was a shitty teenager. So you're like, oh yeah, he's helping the Native community now. I remember when he used to like curse at me when I tried to wake him up in the morning. So you also have, see 360 degrees of this person as a human. But if I remember right, your daughter-in-law told me she like had a job where she made good money, but felt shitty doing it and morally didn't like it, so just left, if I'm remembering right. And I'm like, seems like these, your son and then also your daughter-in-law, who you helped raise starting when they were teenagers, turned into like pretty great people with a real sense of ethics and who they want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. They're definitely really good people. They have really good work ethics. I don't think that would ever change. My son was always a very good student. He worked his ass off. He didn't party. He didn't drink. And, coming from the background that he came from, he could have, taken every advantage of that. His dad being an alcoholic. And I think not having that close relationship and not spending that much time with him may have played a part. I don't know. But yeah, he's always been just a really good kid. He was always a really good student. And I knew that he would, make something out of himself. I didn't know what, but I'm damn proud. Yeah, I'm damn proud. Everything that he's gone through and the life that he had to be subjected to, he's done amazing. And he picked a wonderful partner. So I'm happy for both of them. And I'm so happy that I do get to be a grandma. I just wish that I could be a grandma a little more aggressively and be there more.
Yeah,
but
that's going to be...
life is what it is.
I just talked to my parents about this, actually. I saw them last weekend. And, I moved to New Jersey, and I live about 20 minutes from the house they sold when they left New Jersey. And they've got a happy life. They spend some of the year in Florida, some of the year in the Northeast, but very far drive. I'm like, man, do you think you guys would have sold that house if you knew I was going to move 20 minutes away with your grandkid? And they were like, I don't even want to think about it. Please don't ask us questions like that. I could see that they were like, son of a bitch. I could see it.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm immediately like telling my husband, oh my God, we've got to drop everything and find jobs, and we've got to find a house. We've got to, finish the things that we need to do here so that we can move there. And he's like, slow down, we can't just drop everything, but that's what you want to do. My daughter-in-law's parents both live there. I've had some major pulls at the heartstrings with knowing that they have the opportunity to see him more than I do. And that breaks my heart. But I've been reassured that that's not going to build their relationship any worse or better than mine. But it still pulls at you.
FaceTime goes a long way. FaceTime's a game changer in modern times. It helps. It's not the same, but it helps.
Yep. And it does help. And she's so good at that. She's so good at, sending me pictures and calling on the phone when he's, up and, active and doing tummy time or in his crib trying to play. And she's so good. She's, we've always been super, super close, and I'm so grateful for that. So at least I have that. You're right.
Now I want to get to know a little bit about you outside of the context of the other calls, you outside of the context of being a grandma. You have been through many phases of life already. Now you say you've landed in a phase where you're with a good guy. You live far away from where you used to. It sounds like you got a pretty good job right now. I'm just wondering who you are outside of being a new grandma, outside of being a mom, outside of the connections to these other calls where, we got really real. What's the day-to-day like? And can I ask how old you are these days? Or at least an age range?
Mid-50.
Mid-50. That's pretty young to be a grandma. Not the youngest grandma we've ever had on the show.
Right.
We had a 39-year-old grandma
Yeah.
one time. But you got a
Holy
lot.
mud.
Yeah, there you go. You got a lot of life ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad how much I've cursed on this call to only hear you then say holy mud. Makes me feel real potty mouthed.
Oh, trust me. The F-bomb goes like all the time, continuously.
But for you, that probably means fudge. Holy mud. I don't give a fudge.
No, not at all.
Okay. I won't feel so bad
My
then.
husband would like to say that. Yeah.
I'll stop feeling bad then. Okay.
My husband was definitely raised in an entirely different kind of environment than I was. My dad, I used to be asked all the time, was your dad a sailor? Because my mouth was just a potty mouth, totally. And then he grew up in a home environment where it was like, you're sitting at the dinner table and, may I be excused and, that sort of thing. And his parents were definitely a little more proper than mine, obviously, but both of our worlds combined, we work really well together. He has a professional job, a union represented job. I have a government job as well. And so we both do fairly well for ourselves. I'd like to say that we're, middle class at best. We try and stay active and, we're pretty much just homebodies. We go to work every day. We kind of live outside of the city. So we there isn't a lot to do in our little town that we live in. And our weekends consume us with, a couple of remodels that we own and we're trying to get rented out and finished and rented out. And so that's basically our day to day. It's just your normal humdrum American life, trying to one up the next level of your life so you can work on retiring. I mean, that's my theory is I'm working because I want to be able to retire. I want to be able to fund my retirement. My mom died super young. She died, I think she was 64. She was diagnosed with mesothelioma. She didn't work in it. My dad did. But she got it and she didn't know about it until March of 2010. And then she passed away in July of 2010. So it was really, really short. So she didn't get to do anything when she retired. She just basically sat at home. And, I was 39 when she passed away. I was like, that's not going to be my life. I'm going to go do some shit. I want to travel. I want to see some things. And so that's what my goal is just to, just be able to have money to live in retirement and do the things that we want to do. Granted, our life is expected to go a complete different way, but now that we have a grandchild, we want to focus more on, centering it around being there, but still being able to retire. And yeah, that's what we do. Just work and come home. Nothing spectacular.
You mentioned you always wanted to do some things. And as you said, that's going to be adjusted because there's going to be more trips back to see this little squid guy.
Mm-hmm.
But what are the things?
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that you're like, I've always wanted to do this. This is on my list. I'm jealous of people who had kids young now because I was 39 when my son was born. And I'm sitting here going, oh yeah, I don't get much time. I don't get much time when he's out of the house. I don't get that window. What are you going to do with it? I'm going to get jealous of this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Why do I do it to myself? I am honestly, how old when Cal leaves for college? I'll be about 60 years old. Oh my goodness, he's already in kindergarten. What is happening? Anyway, we'll be right back. I love IQ Bar products. I have an IQ Bar pretty much every morning. It's my breakfast most days these days. And I really like them. Perfect size for a quick grab and go breakfast. I know that the ingredients in there's nothing deceptive. It's not all chemically. It's not going to lead to a big sugar rush and then sugar crash at the beginning of the day. I love it. I'll tell you who really loves IQ Bar products. My wife's relationship with these IQ Joe coffees is adorable. It's incredible. The IQ Joe is a coffee. It provides energy without all the caffeine jitters because there's magnesium in there. boosts focus, boosts mood. Okay, there's a whole blend of things in there. That's great. Hallie wakes up and she goes and gets the IQ bar coffee, which she refers to as coffee sticks, and does a little dance in the morning and goes, coffee sticks, coffee sticks. And I just invite you, and she'll not be thrilled that I'm putting this imagery out there. I just invite you to think of my wife, bedhead, rolling out of bed, and the first thing she does is a little coffee dance. That's how much she loves it. And I'm telling you, it's legit. On top of that, I'll tell you that I also love the IQ Mix, which is a hydration product. It's got 3 times as many electrolytes as the sports drinks. Also boosts your mood, helps focus you up. Great for pre-workout, or if you need to just feel hydrated in the morning, especially for my drinkers out there if you're hungover. It's a really, really good set of products. I love IQ Bar and everything that they're making. Go ahead. Start each day right with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their ultimate sampler pack includes all 3. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our podcast listeners an exclusive deal, 20% off all IQ Bar products. Plus, you get free shipping. And I'm telling you, my wife dances around in the morning going, coffee sticks, when this weird little alien voice. It's adorable, but she loves the coffee so much. You can get it as part of the Ultimate Sampler Pack, because there you get 7 IQ bars, 4 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. You got 9 satisfying flavors of the bars, by the way. I've been going nuts on the lemon blueberry, the peanut butter chip. You also have IQ Mix. That's a 0 sugar drink mix. Hydrates with electrolytes. Gets your mood going. That has 7 refreshing flavors. I've been all about the pink lemonade lately. And the raspberry lemonade, that's a limited edition flavor, by the way. That is no joke. You've also got IQ Joe, which is the jitter-free instant coffee that makes my wife dance in the kitchen, probably because of that 200 milligrams of natural caffeine. That one, of course, has a limited edition pumpkin spice flavor. Get that while supplies last. You've also got original black coffee, vanilla spice, toasted hazelnut. IQ Bar makes the #1 brain and body nutrition bar, hydration mix, and instant coffee in the U.S. Over 15,000 5-star reviews and counting. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products. Plus, you get free shipping. If you want that 20% off, just text the word beautiful to 64,000. Text the word beautiful to 64,000. That's beautiful at 64000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
I am Christopher Titus of the Titus Podcast.
I am Rachel.
And I'm Ken Highland, a.k.a. The Highlander.
When the rest of the world is screaming insanity, we scream sanity. We do a satire, comedy, news, and events podcast.
First and foremost, funny first.
Whatever's happening in the world, if you want to hear it in a way that doesn't rip your soul out, we'll make you laugh with it.
At the end of the day, we just scream sanity. That's what we do.
Can't we just talk sanity? Because
No, you have to scream sanity.
Ooh.
So
Nobody's going to hear it.
so tired of you guys screaming.
I talk stupidity.
Well, that's true.
The Titus Podcast on all major streaming platforms, YouTube, and at ChristopherTitus.com. Titus Podcast. It's time to scream sanity.
Thank you again to all of our advertisers. Now let's finish off the phone call. I'm jealous of people who had kids young now, because I was 39 when my son was born, and I'm sitting here going, oh yeah, I don't get much time. I don't get much time when he's out of the house. I don't get that window. What are you going to do with it? I'm going to get jealous of this, but I'm going to ask anyway.
So my big thing, I really would love to see Europe. I want to travel Europe for a little bit. I'd really love to go to Greece. I'd really love to see Australia. I'd really love to go to Peru. There's so many things that I want to do. We really considered living out of the country in retirement, but like I said, now that we have a grandchild, that's not really going to be something that we can do, but we definitely want to go check out all of those places. We like to travel. We like to, try and learn some of the language on the places we're going to go. And we just want to kind of check out the whole atmosphere. I want to, take my husband on a cruise. He's never been on a cruise. So we'd like to have a long cruise and like down the Panama so we can check out that area. So that's the great thing about being such a young mom is, like you said, the kids are gone and they're doing their life so we can do ours. And hopefully we'll have some of those luxuries and be able to do that if we plan right. So.
Love it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of the argument that my son and I have had is, both of my kids are like, not everything's about money. And, the way that I kind of grew up is, well, yeah, it kind of is, you can't just live footloose and fancy free and live in a school bus like, one of my son's grandparents did, his grandfather lived in a school bus and was kind of a hippie and lived off the land. I'm like, you can't live like that and have anything, so my mentality is, yeah, I got to have money because I want to be able to do all these things or, and where my kids are like, it's a total different generation. It's like, it shouldn't be balanced on money and, the things that you have. And it's not necessarily what I have, but it's just, I want to be comfortable. So there's always kind of a big argument on, it shouldn't always be about money, because I keep saying, well, I can't leave my job. I make really good money. I couldn't make that there, So it was always an argument. I don't know if his perception on that has changed now that he has a child and he has to think about college and diapers and formula and, all these things that come with being a parent. I would kind of hope that he would see it out of how I see it or have seen it, but I don't know. So it's still too fresh. Little guy's only 6 weeks, so it's kind of hard to have that conversation with him and see what his views are yet.
And can I ask, I forget, based on your son's call, I know that you have, is the native side of your family your side, your husband, your ex's side, or both?
It's the ex's side.
It's the ex's side. It's the ex's side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's his father's side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's so fascinating.
And
too.
when we were together, we definitely explored that a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think my son was just too young. We split up when he was like 3 and 4, off and on. So he was too young to kind of recognize all of that. He definitely spent time with his father and that side of the family. But I didn't have a lot of knowledge of it. And I definitely wasn't going to go spend some time over there around a family that, didn't want me around to try and learn like there was it. So an
immense amount of tension. You strike me as a very well-intentioned person who in a perfect world would love to explore the culture of your ex, but it sounds like there were many roadblocks towards that being a reality. And I don't think you need to apologize for that at all in this case.
Yeah. I wish that his father would have stepped up a little bit more. And, I don't know what was instilled in him as far as, the traditional Native American beliefs in his tribe. And, I've asked him, because he works on Native land over there and there's a tribe there where he lives. I've asked him if he's gone to powwows and, different things over there. And he's like, no, why would I? So I don't know if it's because it's not his tribe or I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm ignorant on that. I don't know, but I've never, like I said, it was too much of a struggle to try and immerse myself into that lifestyle after we had split up.
You've lived a lot of life.
Yeah, definitely. I've been told many times I should write a book. It's amazing how so many different weird things will happen, not just with myself, but with, like my sister or my brother or, just different family members and my kids. And yeah, just definitely. I think if I could educate anybody on anything, it would be about domestic violence and, just letting other people know, whether it's a man or a woman, that you don't need to deal with being treated like that or having somebody, control your mind and what you do. And yeah, if I could instill anything in anybody that is going through that, it would just be to, educate yourself and, move on. You don't need that. You're better than that. You don't need to deal with that. If I could have went back and told myself that when I was 19, it would be, who knows? Hopefully it would have been life-changing for everyone. But everything happens for a reason. I wouldn't have had my son. I wouldn't have had my second son. And, I may not have met my husband that I'm with now. So like I said, everything happens for a reason. Yeah.
I am struck, since it came back to that topic, there's something you laid out before. I found it really interesting and very human. And I'll say that for a lot of, there's this thing that starts to happen in our country where there's people who look at people like me, very openly democratic in my politics. I live in the Northeast. I'm an artist. This is not a surprise. But there's people who look at people like me and go, oh, these people are socialists or communists even. And then sometimes the counterpoint is, well, why not have government programs that spread the wealth and try to help people in need? But when you talked before, there was something really impactful that I want to revisit, since you are talking about some of the past, some of the choices. And I sit here and I go, you were talking before about how there was a stretch where you looked into getting some assistance from the government, but you said, this is making me feel bad. The way this is being handled is making me feel bad. I'm going to go get a job and just feed my family. And you sit there and you go, right, I believe in a world where our government provides a strong safety net and helps people out. And when people are in need, they can rely on the fact that there's basic standards their government's going to give them. But if you have to walk into an office with someone who rolls their eyes at you or judges you, or who wants to, I think you said you felt like you were on parole. Somebody who sits here and wants you to ask you a million questions that make you feel defensive and like they're blaming you for hard times. You sit there and you go, well, that's a shitty service. And a lot of people are going to say, I don't want to bother with something that makes me feel judged, demeaned, accused, defensive. I don't want those services as if that's what they are. And it's something that jumped out to me before, but we didn't get to talk more about it. And we don't even necessarily have to talk more about it. But I just sit there, I go, right. All the good intentions in the world don't add up to much if when you walk in there and go, I hear you might be able to help, the person looking across from you, back at you from across the desk starts acting like a dickhead. At that point, you go, this is not worth it. This is not worth it.
No.
If this makes me feel stigmatized or shamed or judged.
Yeah, it was actually kind of, it was so demeaning. Just the feeling that I'm struggling and I'm asking for help, and the guidance that you're giving me is not helpful at all. You're giving me slim pickings as it is, and I'm still struggling, but yet I still have to jump through all of these hoops just to get this minimal help that you're going to maybe provide if I do the right things or say the right things. Yeah, it was just so frustrating. I can't imagine. Thank God I had help from, my family, my mom and my dad. If I really needed a place to go, I could go there. I didn't ever want to put them out either, because they struggled. They didn't make any money. So to actually just that feeling of knowing that you need help and the people who are supposed to help you the most are making you feel even worse than you should. It was so disturbing to me. And, you want to be the type of person, I want to help people as much as I can. So you would think that I would want to go into that field and kind of help, but you get to the mentality where you're like, well, what is my little axe chop in the piece of wood going to do for anybody? It's not going to help anything. Just like, people think, well, why am I going to vote? It's not going to matter. You just get that mentality where you feel like you can't help. You want to help, but you're not sure which way to go to help somebody.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to hear that and to hear, to also know that you're someone who it sounds like has turned out okay, but where there were a lot of stretches of life where you weren't sure if that was going to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to hear.
Yeah, and
you're effectively talking about why people lose hope.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. It's hard to realize, oh yeah,
mm-hmm.
in this country, if you fall on hard times, there's a lot of different ways that both people and organizations and bureaucracies with their red tape can make you just give up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad you didn't.
Absolutely.
It sounds like you never gave up. And it sounds like there's a lot of reasons you could have. I'm glad you didn't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, there was one thing that kept me going, and that was my kids. I knew that the life that I led and the way that I was raised, where, I didn't have a pot to piss in, I didn't want them to have that. I wanted to work so that they could have a little bit more than me. Maybe they wouldn't be living the, lap of luxury, but at least they'd have a little bit more than I did, and maybe, better opportunities so they could make something of themselves. That's all I wanted out of life, is just to make sure that they were eventually going to be okay. It was hard. There was a lot of times, it was really hard, especially, like we talked about, being in a home life that was just awful. Some people, if they didn't have the right mentality, when I lost my mom and when I was going through, just different states of depression, being married to, an abuser, it was like, okay, I'd come home and the kids would be a little bit older and doing their own thing. And depending on the climate in the house, I'd be like, okay, well, am I going to drink tonight? How much am I going to drink tonight? I could have continued on that path where I became an alcoholic or a drug addict, or something like that. But I knew that that wasn't going to get me anywhere. So I knew that I had to have some kind of change. I just didn't know how to get there until you finally just get there. But just think of the people that don't have that kind of strength or don't have that mentality. And this world's just fucked up. There's so many people that are drug addicts or, alcoholics, and they live on the streets and they don't have anybody to pick them back up. And yeah, it's just a crazy world. And to think that could have been me, geez, my life could have been totally different. My kid's life could have been totally different.
I'm left wondering, and this is a really broad question that I normally would not ask, but you just said this world's fucked up. On a fundamental level, when you roll out of bed in the morning, do you think the world's a good place or a bad place, or is that question kind of flawed for you after the life experience you've had?
I think for the most part, the world is a really good place. I think there's some really fucked up people in this world that can do some pretty stupid and crazy things. And, a lot of people's mentality can just really get them in a lot of trouble. But I think for the most part, the world is a really good place. I would like to believe that it's a really good place. I have to believe that, my kids are young and I have a grandbaby. I have to believe that the world is it's gonna turn this shit around and it's gonna be better for everybody. I would hope. That's the way I wake up in the morning. And then about midday, you're like, well, Jesus Christ, here we go again. One thing after another, I'm sure. Each day is different. But yeah, for the most part, I would really like to think that the world is a good place and there's good people in the world. And then, there's these, every once in a while, these assholes just kind of come and screw everything up.
And is there, not to put you on the spot, not to make it a Hallmark card or to make you have to be a spokesperson for survivors, but as someone who landed in greener pastures after dealing with some abuse in the household, both as a kid and then, as a spouse, is there a part of your personality that allowed you to navigate your way out of that? Are there people that helped with that? Are there moments that allowed you to keep moving forward, or is it something in you? I'm wondering, just as far as anybody else listening who might be going, I'm in a shitty situation and I'm not sure how to get out of it. Are there anything, are there just pieces of wisdom you look back on and go, here's what allowed me to keep going and find my way out?
hmm I think the biggest thing for me was just to admit to myself that this isn't what I wanted, that this isn't where I see myself, and that I shouldn't allow someone to talk to me or treat me like that, and that I want better for myself. And then, when I left, it was like, I had prearranged a house for me to live in. I had begged my sister to move in with me so I could afford to live in this house. My stepson and my son, the oldest, were gone out of the home. So I didn't have to worry about them. But my youngest is still in the home. He was like 15. And I was like, he's still got to go to school, and he's got to do all these things. So I had to plan this out. I had to physically leave one morning. At the time, my husband got up to go to work at like 5:30 in the morning. And we knew the night before that we had some of my coworkers were coming. I openly let everybody know that, this was going on and that I needed help. I needed to leave. So we literally left. We had a mover come, and we had as many family and friends that we trusted come help us move all of our shit, pack it, and get out of there by the time he came home that day. That's how we had to leave, because he had threatened multiple times that he would either kill me, my kids, or my parents if I left. So we had to literally not let him know where we were going and just leave. So in order to get to that level, you have to know that there's going to be something better. You're strong enough to do it, but you have to also confide in somebody. You have to be honest with yourself and then somebody else, because if you don't have help, you're not going to be able to do it. So you're just going to give up and you're going to stay. My biggest fear wasn't that he was going to intentionally kill me or hurt me severely. My biggest fear was that he was going to accidentally do it. I don't think he intentionally ever wanted to kill me, but the way that he did things, I think he could have accidentally seriously hurt me, or killed me. He never touched the kids. Like I said, he verbally abused them, but he never touched them. So I think he just gotta have that. You got to have the mentality that you don't want this for yourself, that you can be strong enough, and that you can ask for help. You have to confide in somebody. You need the help. Yeah, it's a hard. I mean, I remember being in that home that night, and my sister was there, and we were exhausted. We'd been moving all day and trying to set up stuff, and I remember we had this funky couch that kind of hooked together. It was like a sectional, and it kind of hooked together so the other piece didn't move. And I was trying to get this damn sofa together, and she was in the kitchen doing something else, and I was trying to get this sofa together, and I couldn't get it together. I was so tired, and I was so frustrated. I just dropped to the ground. I started crying. And I was like, I can't believe that I let him do this to me for so many years. And now I'm struggling trying to get this shit together. I just lost it because it was just so much stress, but then also relief. And yeah, it was a crazy time. It's the best thing that I could have ever done for myself and my family. So I think they just, if somebody is in that situation, they just need to know that, it can get so much better. You don't need to live your life like that. It's just not worth it to waste. I wasted 16 years of my life with that jackass, putting up with that, knowing the entire time that I wasn't happy.
I got to tell you, we just ran out of time, but that last 2-minute stretch you just went on, I've been doing this show for hundreds of episodes, 8 years. And that was one of the most hit me in the gut 2.5-minute stretches of this show we've ever had. That's I think there's gonna be people out there who go, I gotta ask for help, and I gotta bet on the fact that it can be better if I go for it. I gotta just place a bet. I gotta just jump into the unknown and trust it has to be better than this, and that people will help me get there. That was beautiful. I feel silly saying it, but so this is the end of our time on the free feed. We do have a paywall. We do some extra content where we get to know people. I'm actually really so excited for this. We do 5 random questions with each caller. And a big thing that I love is that it helps spread out the content if we focused on one thing. So, you have focused on some really hard stuff. You've been so open, honest, raw, real in a way that I think other people out there are going to get so much out of. And I'm also so happy if you have a few more minutes to just throw some real random stuff at you and see what else comes down the pike where we decompress and talk about some other things too from your well-rounded life of experience.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Caller, thank you so much for being so open, so honest, for letting us see another piece in the puzzle pieces of your family's story. It's really incredible. Really incredible. Thank you so much. And thank you to our producer, Andrea Quinn. As always, thank you to Shell Shag for our theme music. If you want to know more about me, including tour dates, go to punchup.live/Chris Gethard. Our voicemail line is 973-306-4676. We're on Instagram at Beautiful Anonymous Pod. Join the Facebook group at Beautiful Anonymous, the community. Thanks so much, everybody. This week on Beautiful Anonymous Plus, here's some of what you'll get from the 5 questions. What's the largest amount of cash you've ever held, and why?
The largest amount of cash I've ever held. You're going to think this is crazy. So the largest amount was probably about, $70,000.
$70,000 in cash?
Uh-huh.
A huge
So
amount.
the crazy thing is so I used to work for a company that, the claw machines where you go and you try and put a quarter in and use the claw to get a stuffed animal.
Yeah, didn't see that coming. Didn't see you bringing up claw machines, and I don't. Please tell me it was $70,000 in quarters. Please tell me you've had 280,000 quarters on you. Don't forget to sign up for Beautiful Anonymous Plus at beautifulanonymous.com.